Hey everybody, welcome to the Chinchilla Pick-In Podcast. This is David Underwood, and I'm here with our guest host, Nick Young. It is July the 15th, Thursday. Nick, thanks for filling in for Brandon. How are you doing, man?
I'm happy to be here, and I'm doing well. It's a good day.
Is it a good day?
It's
good.
another
It's
day.
hot, man. It is hot out.
It's another day in paradise.
Yes.
Well, it's only 90. Come on, it's okay.
Well, I thank you for coming on. Brandon's out of town. He's on vacation. We get vacations from time to time, believe it or not.
I didn't know that. There's vacation time that comes with this?
Who knew? And I appreciate you coming in and filling in, man. So what we do here, guys, it's the same thing as always. We always hope to be entertaining, educational, and uplifting because we want everyone to make money. The rules are the same. Just because Brandon's not here doesn't mean we change the rules. The rules are that we get together about 10 minutes before the show and we tell each other what we're going to talk about or what we would like to talk about. We do not discuss it. We save that for that live interaction throughout the show. That way you get an honest feeling that we're having a discussion here and actually trying to help you guys find the answer better. All right? That's our goal. Help you guys make money. Help you guys make wise investments. So Nick and I, let me introduce Nick Young here. He's a gentleman I've known for, what do you say, what, 2.5 years?
2.5 years.
Yeah, 2.5 years now. He's a smart guy. Some people call him an old soul. I don't know. Maybe not.
I think the one I heard last was that I was 29 going on 90.
29, yep, 20. That's about right, actually. Yeah. So let me ask you a couple of questions real quick, so you kind of introduce yourself,
absolutely,
if you will, to our crowd here. Kind of tell me about where you went to school, where you grew up, and get a good feeling about you and your background here.
Yeah, absolutely. So Ohio born and bred. Gotta love the Ohio heritage there. Went to Miami University actually for college. Really good experience, a lot of unique opportunities. Originally actually wanted to study economics. I got pushed out of it to study management, but still pick up economics as a hobby. And then from there actually decided to take that into investing and whatnot, and found my way down that very unique path, as we both know.
Yeah, it is a unique path. And that was actually my next question. You led right into it, man. What actually got you started in stocks? Now, was it like the whole Robinhood app thing, or were you looking at it before then? Like, what really got you going?
Well, I really started in high school. All those kind of play websites where you can kind of go on and play stocks, and I found out that I was doing okay. I actually either seemed to know what I was doing, or I was the luckiest person on the planet. And
nothing wrong with that.
No, I was happy about that. So I thought I'd take it out and give it a try. And I talked to some different individuals I knew with investing. And from there, just took a stab at it, and it worked. I mean, you know, one of the first stocks that I went for, I think we talked about it at one point. I remember hearing it on a past podcast. I can't remember, but was Roku was my first big stock, and very happy about that.
Are you reading my question sheet right now? Is that what's going on?
I'm not, actually.
Because that was my third question here for you, was your Roku trade. So this guy, everybody, I just want to point this out. He called Roku when it was below $30 and was like, this is going to go up, guys. This is totally going to jump. And we're all looking at him like, who's this guy? What is he saying Roku for, you know? But Nick was 100% right on Roku.
Well, actually, so with Roku, it was funny. So my dad was big into buying Roku products. And I was like, okay, kind of interesting. And I saw them develop. And I remember in the beginning when they were kind of clunky, and just when you first have something, it's always clunky and doesn't always run right. And then the newer model comes out, and by the time they were going public, I was like, okay, they actually have a pretty good running thing. And people were like, well, yeah, smart TVs though. And I'm like, yeah, but smart TVs, they're just, I don't know, they're still kind of clunky in my mind in regard to operation and whatnot. So, and there's also some features that come with Roku or that are kind of unique. So you have some free options on there as well. So I remember it coming out, and it came out at $19, and I bought it the first day it came out, and then it dropped to $11, and I was like, oh, that's not good. And then I bought actually more at $11, and then it turned around and shot up, and I was extremely excited about that. wish I'd held on to it. Unfortunately, I sold it to buy a truck, which was the most expensive truck I will ever pay for, I'm sure. But yeah, it was a really good choice, and was really happy with it. And I thought it was going to do well. I didn't think it was going to do as well as it did, and that was a shock. But very happy with what it did for me during the time, and wish I could have gotten more out of it than I did.
You and I both. I did buy a Roku TV, so that my big huge TV there is a Roku one.
It's my subtle influences,
right? Yes. Getting your part inside my house here. All right. So let's get started. Nick, what topics did you want to roll through first, since you're the guest? Go ahead.
Well, I appreciate that. So the first thing I think I want to go into is inflation. I know you and Brandon have both talked about this in the past, and I still think it's a big topic today. And I think there's a couple of perspectives on inflation to really keep in mind on. First bit, obviously, being where inflation has gone over this past year and how it's going to affect us as a society. Obviously with inflation, the big factor is costs and things are going up, which gives people a little less spending money. So how's that going to affect Q2 sales for a lot of businesses? How's it going to affect Q3 sales? And, having come out of COVID, a bunch of people kind of spent money because we're free. Well, now with inflation going up on the back end of that, how does that tie together? So I think it's going to be an interesting perspective. I'm honestly a little concerned. Stocks like Best Buy, your consumer products, things that aren't your necessities, could take a hit here through Q2 into Q3. Probably will bounce back in Q4. Christmas season, because what I found as a trend is that people will still buy things even if they don't have money. They'll find a way to do it for Christmas. But yeah, I mean that's kind of my thoughts on that. I'm a little concerned. What are your thoughts here on inflation and really how it's going to affect the market?
Nice. I like how you just turned it around right there. So yes, inflation. I've always been cautious, and I've always said that I believe I've always said might be heading into that 70s hyperinflation.
Mm-hmm.
And this has been a concern of mine. And I couldn't make a call whether we are back at couple months ago when we were really talking about it.
Right.
Today, I still can't make a call. Things that worry me was what Yellen said today, and I'm going to quote her because I wrote down the exact quote here. Quote, "I think we will have several more months of rapid inflation," end quote. So she's even admitting that we're going to have several more months of inflation, but she's calling it midterm, just transitory. She's trying to lighten the fact that we're going to have several more months of inflation.
Well, and the point I actually want to jump in there real quick is you said transitory. And I've always been interested in that term of transitory inflation, which is just a new term in economics.
It is.
So do you think with transitory inflation, do you think inflation is transitory as we're looking at it? And do you think that transitory is, actually, do you want to kind of define transitory?
Well, so hold on. I believe transitory, what they're trying to make it seem like is just temporary is what
Mm-hmm.
they want to use. They want to use this, just saying it's temporary. That's all they want to say. Now, the inflation right now we're seeing can be temporary if we stop some of the inflationary government spending and processes that we're doing right now that are causing the dollar to lose value. We have to take steps to slow it down, is what I believe. And I don't believe right now we are. I believe that the U.S. government is just 100% believing that the economy is going to lift back up on its own, GDP will rise, and then we don't have to worry about this inflation.
Hey, if that happens, I'll be extremely happy. I think from that, where my concern kind of comes in too, when you're looking at it, is I feel like we also have some bubbles built in along with the inflation. You look at what's been going on with the housing market, which is heavily inflated. As somebody who just bought a house, you're looking and talking to people in different markets. I know somebody just bought a house in Florida, another individual in Maryland. Houses are being bought and getting offers in that are $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 over asking price.
Well, dude, all right, so I'm going to interrupt you here. 20% of all home buyers today are institutions. They're not actual home buyers. They're just institutions. It's an investor's market right now, and that 20% could grow, could not grow, could stay right where it's at, and that just could be a thing going forward.
Right.
That 1 out of every 5 is institution. But then you also have the government still to this day buying mortgages every single month in the tens of billions of dollars.
Well, and here's another concern on that.
And so that means we're handing out loans to whoever.
So the other concern that you have to have there, though, is that the CDC during the beginning of COVID had put in the mandate that you can't evict anyone during that time frame that's not paying their loan. The same thing they did with renters as well. Well, the problem with that is if people aren't being evicted and they're not paying, what happens with the housing market? Well, there was always houses available. So the housing market basically is tightening because people aren't being evicted, which, to put the humanitarian
it was
aspect on it,
it was a good thing to do.
Nice
it was needed to do.
But was it the right thing to do from an economic standpoint?
Yeah, but sometimes, and here, I'm going to argue this case a little here. You do have to put economics aside sometimes for the sake of, the people.
Agreed.
Because as a government, your job is to take care of the people to a point. I believe you want the private sector to take care of most things themselves, right? I believe that, yes. But that was their job during COVID. So there's a fine line to walk there.
So I would challenge you on that, but this is the podcast to challenge you on governmental responsibilities. But going from that perspective, you're looking at the inflation rate. So bringing us back kind of to that with houses, and like just today is a great example. I was actually going to get gas, and I noticed that gas overnight went up pretty much 20 cents across the entire tri-state area. I actually got it. I got a small amount thinking, it's really high here, so I'm just going to go somewhere else. And then I got, back towards home, and I was like, no, it's just high everywhere. It begs the question in regard to inflation. First of all, are we getting accurate numbers on what the Fed and the government's claiming inflation is, or is inflation higher than what we're being told? And the other aspect too is how they're gauging it. Are they gauging it accurately?
Now, some people are saying inflation numbers are being skewed because oil is all on its own here, doing its own thing, and that the rest of the economy is not jumping like oil is.
But that's not entirely accurate. I mean, you look at it, food's going up, housing prices are going up. I mean, you're seeing multiple different sectors. Now, maybe not as much as oil has, because oil's gone up. I believe when I was looking at it it was $2.25 across the country as an average. I believe we're either 47 or 50% up for inflation just on oil, just from the start of the year. So it's just interesting. I'm curious how that's going to affect some things. I'm a little tentative.
Let's get into oil later, a little bit more detail on that, because there's some more numbers I want to throw at you as well. But right now we're focused on inflation.
Be gentle with that throw.
But you're right. I mean, I believe there's also more to the inflation numbers than just oil as well. The housing numbers or the housing numbers being propped up by the government QE every single month in the tens of billions. There's a lot to it, and will that affect stocks? How's an investor make money off this now?
Well, you think about it, it will actually affect every stock in some capacity, and because the reason it will is the transportation industry, delivering raw materials, all that kind of stuff. So it will have some impact. I think the question is going to be how much. And it kind of, and this is a little off topic, but with the transportation industry tightening a little bit because there aren't as many drivers, which kind of goes into some other, government regulations, as you'd mentioned, where we're paying people and people are staying home because, if I can get X amount of dollars rather than drive a truck across the country and I can see my family, I'm going to do that. So I think that begs a couple of questions there. Now, where I think this ties in nicely was one of the topics that you had mentioned that you wanted to bring up.
Okay, go ahead.
Is the semiconductors.
All right.
Now, why do you think that's so correlated? Because you have inflation going up, but what's going on with semiconductors?
So the semiconductors were dropped across the board today, guys. They did a big drop everywhere, right? There were there was a lot of put options put out on big players such as Micron, AMD, Intel, a lot of put options. Everybody was they're just heavy hearted. It looked like a few institutions were putting millions of dollars into saying that these are going to drop. Right. Uh, Now, what I've always said, when a whole sector drops like that a lot in one day, not every single stock in that sector deserves to drop, right? So I was looking at a call, a stock to buy because of this big drop,
right?
And that's what I was looking at, and that's what I was saying. What a call for today would be NVDA,
and I think actually it's a good call. NVIDIA is obviously a very well-known brand.
Yeah, they're in everything: game systems, computers, what have you, anything to do with visual graphics, and that's all today.
And the reason I'd be tentative, I honestly think the drop, the put probably comes from or the drop comes from the put, from what's going on. I think the area to be tentative there, because there's such a demand for semiconductor semiconductor chips. Where I'd be tentative is that eventually there's going to be a turnaround there. I mean, what they're all in. The big thing that kind of correlates, and this is why I kind of brought it up in relation to inflation and gases and oil and whatnot. Cars.
Okay.
Cars are in such a backlog, and other groups that are getting hurt by this, at least in the short term right now, are like rental car groups. It's actually impossible if you're trying to go for business to get a rental car because there's nothing available. What happened is that a bunch of rental car groups sold their cars because of COVID. People weren't traveling as much. They got a bunch of extra inventory. They sold it. Well, now you have the semiconductor shortage. They had no cars to replace what they sold off. So now you have companies that basically are missing on opportunity because there are people coming in. I can tell you 3 different cities I went into, and they're like, no, we don't have any cars for you. Things that, one, wasn't surprising to me. 2 were more major cities that were kind of a struggle. But where it becomes interesting is, to your point, semiconductors are in everything: cell phones, video game systems, TVs,
you name it.
How is it going to affect all of those from a production standpoint? And how is that going to affect? And again, you have inflation, so prices and things are going up. So you have the inflation going on, and now you have a shortage of some of these products, which is also going to drive the price up. So you're kind of getting a 2-punch. You're getting a left hook and a right hook right there, and it's just as a consumer that hurts.
Yeah, I mean, consumers are hurting all around because of the inflation, man. And businesses are saying that they're trying to not pass as much on to the consumer in order to meet the rising costs.
Mm-hmm.
But they can only do that so long before they have to raise the costs on everything.
And who's the major producer in semiconductors? Where do they mainly come out of?
It comes out of China
too. So I mean, based on you guys were kind of talking about that, I know, last week. So how that's going to tie in is going to be interesting. It
is interesting. But NVIDIA, AMD, and Intel all were offered potential contracts by the Biden administration to build manufacturing plants here. My thing was like, why don't they just do it on their own? Why do we have to pay for it?
And that's an interesting point. I hadn't heard that one.
Yeah,
that's an interesting point. I mean, I think my initial
they were in talks. It never went through Congress, but they were in talks for it.
My thought for that is they're doing it to encourage them to do it, but that shouldn't be needed. If there's a shortage and there's a demand, they should probably want to do that anyways, naturally. Because I can tell you right now, if that money's given, if the taxpayers are paying for it, they're probably never going to see it again. So, and that, we'll see how it goes. I'm tentative. I'm very.
So you have you're thinking semiconductors as well as a play for if inflation happens.
I think it's something that you buy now on the drop, and it's something you're probably going to want to sit on for a little bit. Because when the turnaround comes, when the demand's not going to go anywhere right now, but eventually the supply is going to come back, and you're going to have a shooting up of sales in those. Now, where I think you're going to be really beneficial, because if they're putting those factories in, or they're the manufacturing plants, it's going to take them, let's say, and I'm going to be probably very liberal with my option here, but let's say it takes, because they're going to speed one up real quick, let's say 4 months, because they want to churn out a bunch of chips so that Christmas season's right around the corner there. I think it's probably going to take a little bit longer than that. But I think if you buy them now, you're definitely going to get, in the long run, you're going to get some benefit.
And plus, NVIDIA is going to split their stock soon, so that's what they said. They publicly said that. So
interesting.
It's a good buy, I think, all around, just because of all these things we're mentioning right now.
Well, if you can buy on the split, that'll be huge.
Buy before the split.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So, I mean, you and I think, are in agreement that inflation, we don't see it stopping soon. But we're not. I am still not ready to pull the trigger and say hyperinflation, 1975. You know what I mean? I'm not going to say that now.
I was actually saying that last year, but it was more in reaction to everything shutting down. And it'll be interesting to see the problem I have, and the reason that I don't think we have the reason things are being held off right now is the government's pumping so much money into the economy. TV. The problem is, A, that's not sustainable. B, that's going to come to bite us in the long run because you're devaluing the dollar by doing it, which, what does that do? That's inflation. So I think we're starting to get kind of bit there by actions from the government because of what was going on during COVID
it's $1.45 trillion each year.
I can't even count that many.
Spent buying nothing but two things, bonds and mortgage-backed securities. I mean, I don't know. To me, that's just...
You say that, and the Big Short pops in the back of my head.
Exactly. Everybody's head. And it should. And that should be a reminder for you guys. Like, they're just basically printing money to go ahead and buy these things, so it looks like they're thriving, but they're not. Anyway, let's move on. I think we covered it. NVIDIA's a call we could agree on coming out of this for inflation.
We could definitely go on that topic for a couple more hours.
But... We could, but the show. Let's move on. Let me bring up a topic that's related to all these changes here. There's two ways I could go with here. I'm going to go with the Delta variant way, right?
Okay.
First, and then we'll end with the last one that I wanted to talk about. So the Delta variant. Let me list off a couple stats real quick. Let you think about what you want to say. The Delta variant is new COVID variant virus that's going throughout the world right now. It's taken over a lot of countries, and it's starting to thrive and expand. Right now, the CDC has said that the mRNAs from Pfizer and Moderna are highly effective. That's the quote: highly effective in stopping and or limiting the symptoms of the Delta variant, right? AstraZeneca and other Asian vaccines are not so effective. So does Europe and Asia look like they're going to suffer because of that? Some of the things to think about, before you answer that is LA County just went on record about an hour ago saying they are now going to require masks for everyone indoors. They're going back to a lockdown. They're reversing this. With this Delta variant, are we heading back to a lockdown across the country? The Yankees game was postponed tonight because 3 pitchers tested positive for COVID, even though they have all been vaccinated. What's going to happen? Is this something where we now need to start pulling money out of the market and get ready to buy on when it drops like a rock again?
So 2 points to that. Well, maybe more than 2, but 2 that immediately jump to mind. First of all is thanks California for taking us back down this path potentially. I think to the first point, I think there will be some snap reactions. I think it's based on what we saw last year and everything being closed down, and especially some states not really opening up until just recently. Now, I'm a little tentative on that because I see it happening because of what happened before and a lot of claims. I think there's been a lot of statements made via media. I think there's been a lot of false information that's probably been put out that garnered a lot of people to kind of stay indoors. So I see it happening. Now, as regard to a government forcing of it, I know here in Ohio, it was basically shut down for 2 weeks, and then it kind of went to some semblance of some weird normalcy. We never really felt fully shut down, if you will.
I think we did for about a month there. There was no one on the interstates.
Well, I was always on it, but
yeah, you and I both. But that was it.
keeping the industries alive.
Everybody was going 100 on the interstates because there's 2 other cars with us.
I think, I honestly, with you, I'm actually, I don't want to say terrified, but I am kind of scared that that's going to happen again, because how many businesses did we lose from that? Can we survive that happening a second time, especially a lot of mom and pop shops? Now, granted, that's obviously not going to affect from a stock perspective, because you're not going to buy a stock in a mom and pop. But at the same time, it is, because without mom and pop shops, that pushes more people to go to places like Target, to go to places like Walmart. And it concerns me, honestly, from an economic perspective. But I definitely could see it happening. I definitely see it. If I had to put a percentage to it, because of the concern over the Delta variant and whatnot, I could see us easily saying 60-40, 60 being we close again, especially states like, Massachusetts, California, Florida will never close again.
New
York, definitely. I think you have, and those are some huge economic hubs. So I do think it could definitely happen again. And I think it'll, if it does happen, it'll have some serious negative impact.
And so the fact that the U.S. vaccines, Pfizer and Moderna, are highly effective against the Delta variant, it's a good thing, right? Because 50% of adult Americans are vaccinated. So, I mean, you have that going for you. But the fact that Europe's main vaccines and Asia's main vaccines are not highly effective, does that mean that that's going to spread throughout them and they're going to shut down? And if it goes throughout Asia and China again, the manufacturing shuts down, but yet we're still running, so now we're not getting any goods? Is that a thought that goes to your head? Europe being shut back down again? I mean, where do you go with that? I mean, how much business do we do with Europe?
So another point on that is I think I heard something from Pfizer today. I think I read it somewhere. I'd have to look it back up, but I believe it was on Pfizer that there was a regression on immunization.
Really?
Yeah. So I can't remember if it was Pfizer. It might have been Moderna. It was one of those. I know it wasn't Johnson & Johnson, but there was concern on that in regard to your point with the Delta variant coming out too.
Yep.
You might need another booster shot to keep it going. Obviously,
which they told us that we wouldn't when we got it.
Well, you have so many vaccines out there. Well, the U.S. just gave a bunch to other countries,
right,
which limits your supply. So now do you have enough for booster shots for either Moderna or Pfizer if you need it? So I remember reading it somewhere. I have to look it back up. And I can definitely, if I find it again, you can kind of bring it up and
I don't think we'll see a shortage of those anymore. We've learned our lesson from COVID of how to turn U.S. factories into producing medicines and masks and so on and so forth.
The question still comes.
And now we know how, and now we know we've done it. Now it could be an easier turnaround if we need to.
It was done though, but the other thing you got to remember is that the FDA has still not approved Moderna, Pfizer, or Johnson & Johnson.
Yep.
They have emergency approval, but not actually FDA approval. So it still begs the question. I mean, there's still things out there, and I don't mean to say that to scare anybody. It's just a fact. Now that being said, in regard to Europe and Asia and the Delta variant, and their vaccines not being
highly effective according to the CDC,
basically up to snuff, I think it does bring a concern. I mean, we saw what it did. Great example is Italy. It tore through Italy.
Yep.
The other thing is with this being a Delta variant, I feel like we're still not sure how bad the Delta variant could be. Same way with regular COVID. We don't know who was affected, who was affected worse than others. There is there's something there. We just don't know what it is. So how it's going to affect them. And in regard to Asia, again, to your point, a lot of manufacturing's over there. Medical, PPE. You've got just general goods, TVs, tennis shoes.
Yep.
Most goods. I'd go so far as to say 75% or more of goods are made over there. So you're already running into a shortage of stuff getting across the ocean. Granted, there are still a lot of containers sitting over there ready to come over. The question is kind of how much of it is everything. So if production halts, okay, that's okay. We have some containers. If there is COVID Delta that kind of shuts down Asia, though, can those containers even get out? So I think there's I think there's a genuine concern there. I think generally I'd have, especially with a global lockdown, I think there's a lot of concern over kind of where things go. I think if we consider it from an economic standpoint and how it can affect businesses, and especially going in again, you have decreased pockets potentially from inflation, or decreased pie, if you will. Now you have not as much stuff going in. Question becomes, how does that affect businesses? I think there's some danger there. I think if I was going to say a business that I'd definitely be confident in to buy now and hold for a while, I'd take us back to the semiconductors.
All right. Yeah, I mean, like you said, they're in everything we use nowadays, and it's just going to grow.
And the demand's there.
Right?
We're just waiting for the supply. At some point, if you build it, they will come.
There you go. There you go. So the next part, and this has to do with the inflation and everything that's happening here, is the oil. So let's talk a little bit more in depth about just oil.
I like oil. Right? You know me.
So right now, what we're seeing is the biggest separation of the movement of price of oil versus the movement of the price of oil stocks in over 10 years. So what I mean by that, for everybody, is the price of oil is going up, but the price of oil stocks is not going up the same amount or even close to the same amount. They're separated by a lot. What is driving oil to move up so much, but oil stocks are not seeing any movement? And I've asked this question 3 weeks in a row and given different data on it, and I still can't figure it out.
Well, first of all, I think it is a conundrum in its own. But if I had to take a stab at it, I think your first part is there's a couple pieces. First being, I want to say there was some sort of regulation that came out at the beginning of the year.
Not to see now, I've looked into this, so not that I'm aware of, right? The rig count right before the pandemic hit, right? The open rig count in the United States was over 700.
Right.
During the pandemic, it dropped down to 300 open rigs that were pumping oil. You know, you would think they would close the cap on a few of them, let them sit until they could pump out some more because there was no demand. I get that. I understand that.
Can only fit so many people on a rig within 6 feet.
Right. So come back to here's the interesting I brought up was that the May numbers were back over 700. But before it started making news, the June numbers dropped down to 500. Why did they drop 200 rigs out of the system in 1 month at the same time that, you know, the oil stocks started to flatten out and not move, but oil price kept going higher? What was going on? Is there a correlation with the rig count movement and the fact that the separation really took off around that time as well?
Well, I'd say 2 points actually that pop into mind. So during COVID, there wasn't, and you and I both know this, especially with a lot of people working from home, there wasn't a lot of people buying gas.
Yeah.
So your user base is smaller than normal.
But trucks are still shipping, and that's a big user base of gas.
Yeah, but it's a different fuel base. But at the same time as well, because typically most of them are diesel. But at the same time, you also have, and the other point on diesel is usually diesel is the byproduct of the creation of gasoline, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So the correlation isn't entirely direct there. Where I think that looking at gas, do you know when they dropped those 200? Exactly?
It was May to June
of last year.
No, this year.
This year.
Last year they went from over 700 down to 300.
I'd be curious to look at, and I'm trying to remember where I was looking at it before, the number of oil barrels that we have. And
OPEC cannot get an agreement to pump out more.
Well, my thought is that there's a massive supply, which usually would be a negative thing. But I think on the flip side is now that the demand shot up, that's driving up the price, and they shut down the 200. So the correlation there could be it would take a while to turn them back on, so the price is sitting high and chance there. Now, where I'm a little hesitant is that, to your point, if the price is going up, the stock should go up. I think people are hesitant on gas stocks, especially with COVID, especially with the Delta variant. We don't really know where oil is going. The other piece that you have with it is that in regard to America, the current administration is very much against oil. So with that aspect, I think people are hesitant because they don't know what this administration's been very, what do I want to say, out of left field, kind of, where they're doing things that maybe haven't been done in the past.
Yeah, but they're not going to change our transportation system in 4 years.
I agree with you.
So, I mean, it should not affect oil stocks that much right now.
But people may be hesitant, especially if they're going to put their money in what they think could be more profitable, which could be green energy with what's being invested into it from subsidies and whatnot. Now,
you're talking like blink charging, cooler technologies, things like that.
One thing actually that I'd be interested to see is I believe it's hydrogen cars. They're actually more efficient and safer than electric cars, but they also explode if they blow up or if they get into a car accident.
Let me show my age here. Again, I did this with Brandon as well. BMW had a hydrogen car in early 2001, 2002.
I remember it.
Yeah, they were the innovators of the hydrogen car. It was very expensive. The problem was it was very expensive, and you could only refill it in cities like LA, Chicago, and I don't even think New York really had too many hydrogen centers.
But think about what that was with the electric vehicle not too long ago. It was hard to find a place to charge outside of very select places. So, I mean, had that been developed, I think over time it would have been better, and it's also better for the environment, I think, than electric vehicles.
So hey, I want to start wrapping this up here.
We're going
way off base here. I want to start wrapping this up here. So I mean, you don't really have an answer either. I don't really have an answer. I'm not calling a buy or a sell on it because I don't understand the price differential. I can't call a buy or a sell. All I know is if they are going to start opening up rigs and pumping out more rigs, then you're looking at Transocean as a good buy. Schlumberger is a good buy, and Apache is a good buy. But that's only if. That's a big if. They're going to start opening up more rigs.
I think what they're going to do, and I think it's tentative on opening more rigs. I think they hold off. They're letting the demand die off from COVID and less buyers. So eventually, I think what they're going to let that do is let that die down. Now, when they start the rigs back up, as our demand goes down, price will go up, and they'll actually get greater profits off of that. So that potentially could help some stock price there. But again, to your point, I'm very tentative on it. I think gas stocks, especially since COVID, are just very, very questionable right now.
There's too many unanswered things out there about them, and I just, I keep asking Brandon. I've asked you. I'm going to keep asking questions, guys, because I want to get to the bottom of this. I want to find out why these things are happening with oil companies.
You just want to buy that Exxon stock the way you did the one time,
that was one of the best calls I've had.
I remember you asking me about that. I remember you were like, I'm not sure about it. And I was like, yeah, go for it. I remember you thanking me about it later too. So you gave me credit when the whole thing happened.
Yeah. I mean, it was a great call on that. There was a few times I did an option play, but if you held the whole time from when I said the buy and you held until the max profit, which I didn't, of course I sold after a good amount.
But honestly, that's a smart move. Yeah. Never expect to sell at the peak because you never will.
Right. But if you did sell at the max profit of that option, you would have made close to 20 times your money. That would have been great.
That's your 5% 4 times over.
Yeah. 20 times, not percent, 20 times. Anyways. One last thing. We're running short on time here. I really want to ask you a quick question. So this will be like a little 2-minute lightning round, if you will.
Okay.
Type thing here. So just give me a short answers.
Are you gonna make this a new thing? Because I kind of like this.
I have no idea. Maybe. AMC's fallen. GameStop's fallen. Right. The famous quote over time has always been that bubbles need new money. Are these two stocks running out of money? Is the meme stock craze over? And on top of that, is GameStop had the final nail in the coffin due to Netflix announcing they're going into gaming?
So 2 parts to that. I'll try to keep them brief. With the meme stocks, I think the first part is that the people that kind of drove that, the problem is they drove it to the top. No one else was buying it. They didn't sell necessarily. Some people did. Some people got out well with that, but they didn't sell. Those people lost money on it when it dropped. Problem is, when you do that, you don't have money to reinvest into it. So I think, to your point, new money is dropping from that perspective. I think you're going to go back to normal on those two stocks. In regard to Netflix, so the Netflix one you had mentioned, and that kind of surprised me.
Yep. Because you already got Xbox Game Pass. You already have PlayStation with their own pass. You know?
I see it being very hard for Netflix to go into that. It'd have to be very unique in what they do. I'd have to see more about their plan of what they want to do. If I had to go on it, I'm going to say I would not invest in Netflix on that one, only because I don't know enough about what they want to do. I'm very tentative. You've got a very hard market to go in there, a very niche market. You really had 3 game systems, unless they can come out with something that.
Are they going to buy up the used games? How are they going to go in here? Like, are they going to put it into GameStop?
What would be cool is if they actually took like the N64 games, if they could find a way to get that kind of stuff, kind of like those. What are they called? I can't remember what it's called, but it's something Pi. The systems that basically you can go play retro games. Okay, you can play old PS1, all that, and it's all on there. And if they could do something like that, where you can basically take it, where it's all there, you pay a subscription, you get access to all of these, you pay, $5 a month, whatever it is. Maybe, because you know how much. I mean, the gamer crowd is a very unique group. They love their old stuff. I think the problem is it won't last very long, because some people are going to find out how bad those graphics are and not necessarily want to play them. And they'll love the games, but the graphics are hard sometimes. And so I'm very tentative on saying anything on Netflix on that one to go forward. I'd say hold off, watch, let's see how it goes. I know that.
But I mean, is this in the GameStop? Yes, no, or I don't know.
In regard to GameStop, I would say the fat lady's probably singing on that one. I'd say you're hearing the last taps of the nails from the hammer going into the coffin. I think GameStop. Yeah, I'd say they're probably not going to be around. They're the next Blockbuster, basically, to the point that you.
Yeah. All right, man. Nick Young, thank you for being on the show today. As always, at the end of the show, we always ask a final thought. My final. I'll let you go first. You're the guest. Go first. What's your final thought you want to leave? What's a message you want to share?
Well, first, I want to say thank you for having me. It's been a lot of fun. I really enjoy it, and I'm definitely going to find more times to try to come back and maybe send Brandon on a vacation, or I can be with Brandon and send you on vacation.
There you go.
Utilize that vacation time. But I think my final thought is keep a wary eye on inflation. I think that's a big factor of what's going to be affecting us here in the future. And on top of that, really keep an eye on your floors. Utilize your floors to the best of your ability. Even the most experienced trader can make mistakes with floors, so just be very mindful of how you use them. And with that, I'll throw it back to you.
There you go. Guys, Delta variant, I'm going to be watching the news, the headlines on this. I want to know where it's going, what's going to happen with this in the other countries. I know the CDC says U.S. is okay, but with LA County already doing their things, I'm sure other counties are going to follow suit. So that's something I'm going to watch. I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet. Oil, I'm still a question mark 4 weeks into me asking these questions about oil. Still got question marks.
Try to get you that answer. I'll look.
Please do. NVDA is my one call from this show today, guys. NVDA, I'm still holding DD. I think DD's going to continue to go higher. I still think that's a great play in DD because they got no overhead, guys. Remember, they're electronic vehicles. They're autonomous. There's no drivers. They're taxis. They're in major cities in China. I don't see a downside to DD Global at all. That one's definitely. I'm still holding that. I'm going to hold that for a long time. NVIDIA though is a buy right now. I see it jumping up. Take your 5% after it jumps and move out from NVIDIA. All right, guys. I hope we've been entertaining, educational, uplifting because we want everyone to make money. You have a good night, and I'll see you next week.